Welcome to Daycare Chronicles One-on-One Podcast, and I am your host, Miss Tanya, and I have a special guest with me today. She is an employee of the Regional Center. Her name is Miss Ikwo. That's what we're going to call her today, Miss Ikwo. A pleasure to have you.
How you doing, Miss Tanya? Thank you for having me.
Oh, yes, ma'am. So glad to have you here.
Of course.
As usual, I always start the podcast. I just want to thank everyone for listening because I do appreciate your time. And I just want to go right into one of the biggest things in childcare is hand washing. Parents, stop using all of this hand sanitizer, all these baby wipes, soap and water. There are times when you need this hand sanitizer and times when you need, the baby wipes. But if you are at home or if you are near a sink, just use some basic soap and water. That is the best thing.
Absolutely. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Just
exactly.
Bring it to basics.
Exactly, yes.
Right.
So with Miss Ikwo being here, I just wanted to talk about, in daycare now, we're starting to see more children that are on the spectrum. They are coming through, and if you have 6 children, you may have 2 that are on the spectrum, and that's a pretty high number for family daycare. And these are undiagnosed children.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
So one of the hardest things to do is to have that conversation with the parent, just to let them know that you've noticed something a little different about their child. Every parent isn't accepting of it, or they may just be in denial. They see it, but they're just in denial. What suggestions would you give a provider just to try to let the parent know that, this is something that they need to really act on?
Definitely just coming from a genuine and loving place. I mean, I think it's hard for any parent when they get information that may not be connected to how they see their child. So no matter if you even have the best intentions, be prepared for it to just not go over well. But it's important because you are outside of the child, probably outside of the parent, probably the individual that spends the most time with this person.
Yes.
Providers really do have a due diligence and responsibility to keep at it. Now, if you're not licensed, you're not a clinician, you may not be able to provide all the answers, but it's important to just be committed to giving your parents a heads up. And you may have to jot some things down, have a paper trail, have some documentation on hand. I mean, some parents are going to be a little bit more accepting. Some, they just may not be educated about what ADHD is or what autism is, or they don't know anyone that has it. None of their girlfriends' kids has this, and it can't be my child. And so it's just the persistence of a provider and giving the information from a compassionate and just concerned place. I think that's a good place to start.
Yes, ma'am.
Definitely a good place to start.
You mentioned ADHD, autism, and from my understanding, those are 2 separate things.
Absolutely. They're 2 different diagnoses. You can have signs and symptoms of each, but the DSM-4, which is actually it's the textbook that says that there's a condition. Let's say, it's autism. For someone to qualify to be officially diagnosed as autism, they have to have observable amount of those qualities. So say there's 15 things to say these are signs and symptoms of autism. A person has to say have 6 of those things or 8 of those things. So the DSM-4 kind of breaks that down. So you can have signs and symptoms of these conditions. Doesn't mean you necessarily have the condition or have the diagnosis. But it may just give you more information on how your child needs to learn or how they need to be taught or the services or supports that they need. So autism and ADHD are 2 different diagnoses, and it's important that families reach out to their local regional center and ask for what's called a psychological evaluation, and that is done by a licensed psychologist. And they do different intake assessments, and that document actually is the thing that parents need when they receive a formal diagnosis.
Well, that is some good information right there. How about some parents take the children to the pediatrician, or I've had parents tell me, well, my pediatrician says there's nothing wrong with my child,
right.
Or not. I don't definitely want to say anything wrong, but that they don't see anything there. Right. And I always tell parents that the doctors only know what you tell them.
Exactly.
If you don't tell them that there's a concern or something there, then they don't know. Sure. The child is there for a brief visit. It may not even be for that. It may be for something else. Yeah. So they may say, oh, well, this child is fine. They see hundreds of children, every week.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's important. Every child has basic needs. So, all right, going to the pediatrician, that's a basic need. Now, the pediatrician, understand, you take your child to the doctor, they have a ton of things to do during that day, a lot of patients. It's like saying every doctor is a good doctor. Right. Just because you're a doctor doesn't mean you're a good doctor. Doesn't mean you could be my doctor. My doctor, personally, we have a relationship. She's known me since I was in college. I mean, she takes extra time and attention, I think, because she knows my mom. Right. She knows me. She has a relationship. Right. You have to be just as I don't even want to say anal, but when it comes to your child's pediatrician, you have to, for one, choose the right one. That's right. You have to choose one that listens to you, that doesn't just rush you off. Right. I mean, I don't know about you, Miss Tanya, but I have Kaiser. Kaiser
so do I.
Has this 15-minute visit rule. Yes. Because you got 3 other heads that they're trying to see. So if you don't go in, tell them exactly what's going on, they just kind of move you along because they have their quota they have to do for the day. And it's important, especially when you have a pediatrician, to find one that takes the time. And like you said, you have to tell them everything so they can give you actual information and resources.
Yeah, I know that about doctors because my sister is a doctor.
Oh,
and
yeah.
So she shared with me that doctors don't know until you tell them. Absolutely. Like, they need to know these things.
Absolutely.
I read that boys are 4 times more likely to be diagnosed with autism than girls.
Yeah.
It's just a higher number for the boys.
And I think that goes to it's culturally, but also the stereotypical attributes of a boy versus a girl. So when you look at 2 children, and they may or may not be on the spectrum, but when you think of behaviors, you think of roughhousing, you think of just what boys do versus what girls do. Yes. I think when a boy, stereotypically, when a boy has a tantrum, people observe different types of things, and I don't think it's necessarily a difference in. That statistic is a difference in maybe boys are just more prone. I think that we look at boys just differently, and we're more apt to think, okay, that seems a little odd, or that seems a little, they're acting up too much. It's not just boys being boys, as opposed to girls. Sometimes if they're quiet, if they're docile, we think, well, that's just who she is. Right. But this young girl could be suffering from issues in terms of socialization or being over or understimulated, and that's the reason why she's quiet. So I think that statistic, I definitely see more young men being diagnosed for sure, but I also think that we also need to observe girls in that same way, and not just follow what we think is normal or appropriate.
Absolutely, so, yes. I do, and I do agree with that. I do agree with that. Absolutely. I had a child who was a little developmentally delayed, but she also she needed to have her tonsils out.
Oh, okay.
So she was here one day and she was just snoring really, really, really loud, and I was like, oh my God, what is this? So I talked to the parents, and she went to see a specialist, and they were like, oh yeah, she needs her tonsils out. Okay. So I noticed that once this child had her tonsils removed, that she was just a different child.
Gotcha.
She was sleeping better. There was no more snoring. Her energy level was up. I mean, it was just like a big change, you know, in this child. Yeah. So sometimes it's just a simple fix as well.
There you go. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But I was a provider, so I'm the one that, you know, noticed it. There was another provider before me, of course. And the parents, but a lot of times when you're a new parent, you don't always know
what to look for.
So that's why you need us old, you know, as old people. You know, there's no more big mamas, you know, running around anymore.
Right.
So
to tell you that's just
exactly
not right. Absolutely.
Right.
And with that example, Miss Tanya, now that individual, if she was taken to maybe the wrong provider, or maybe mom or dad just weren't educated about what may be going on, she could have very well got misdiagnosed because she wasn't talking. She wasn't. She was having those issues that you were seeing. So it's really important to paint a full picture of what you're seeing and get first, second, third.
Yes.
Opinion.
Absolutely.
Doctors can make mistakes.
Absolutely.
Clinicians can make mistakes. I do quality assurance management. I make mistakes. I don't know all the regulations. Licensing can make a mistake. So it's not just saying, I got this one information, I'm going to take that and run with it.
Right.
You have to, it's different, even if you have to call on different parts of your interdisciplinary team, whether that's your provider, whether that's a clinician, whether that's a psychologist, psychiatrist, your pediatrician.
Oh, yes.
And then together.
You just running them down.
Together.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Even if you have, because the
takes
research
a team.
Absolutely. Okay. One person doesn't just know it all.
Exactly.
And we shouldn't claim that. So.
What I've noticed with this new generation of parents is that there's just a lack of concern.
Absolutely. Yeah.
There's just a lack of concern for the children. I had a client who had her doctorate degree in behavioral science, and her daughter is clearly somewhere on the spectrum, high functioning. Right. But she told me when I had the conversation with her, she said, I guess I'm just blind to it. She's like, do you think so? And I'm like, yeah, I do, you know. And let's see what we can do to help her. She had the arsenal there to do it.
Yeah.
But she was dealing with other people's children every day through the court system and did not see it in her own child.
Her own child, yeah. And a lot of the times when you do social service and you deal with a lot of different people, when you come home, for the sake of your family, you have to turn that off. I mean, you have to compartmentalize. I mean, if I took everything I saw being in the field and brought it home, so a lot of the times it's a bit of just being oblivious, and not that maybe mom wasn't trying to pay attention or anything. It just may be a switch that goes off. She's not on the clock, and so something happening just in her own home, she wasn't able to really to filter through. But it took you being an outside agent and a different pair of eyes, not the child's parent or you know, a provider, someone that of course loves your clients.
Yes, absolutely.
But you have a different set of eyes than mom and dad, and it took you to put that on the table.
Absolutely. So, she eventually did try to get her some help. Good. Okay. So I pray that she's done what she needed to do for her child.
Awesome.
I was reading that there are 3 types of disorders. There's autistic, Asperger's, and pervasive. So we're pretty familiar with autistic. What is Asperger's syndrome?
Asperger's, it's like if you think of autism on a spectrum. So a spectrum breaks up into 3 parts. There's mild or early or not so severe. If you have moderate, you have your folks in the middle that may be able to function, but they need extra assistance, and then you have severe. Okay. So Asperger's, let's think of that as a step before the mild.
Okay.
So it's something that is definitely it can be controlled. A lot of people that we interact with every day may have a touch of Asperger's or may have some of those criteria that I was mentioning earlier, but they've learned how to have coping mechanisms, and they've learned how to adjust and adapt to that. So Asperger's is a developmental disability. It is a condition that is cognitive based. It can have physical implications depending on how you're handling, depending if you're on medication or stuff like that. But it's almost the pre-door before you get into
autism. Okay.
Yeah.
And what about the pervasive development? I've never heard of this one. Pervasive developmental disorder. Are you familiar with that?
I'm actually not familiar with that. I'm sure if it's along the lines of ADHD, autism, Asperger's, it's probably just another end of that spectrum or a piece of that spectrum.
I got you.
It's really important to understand that you can have one or multiple of these diagnoses.
So you can have ADHD and autism together?
Absolutely. And you may have signs and symptoms of one, but what manifests the most is the autism. So it's almost like having an individual that is dual diagnosed. So you can have, and this is going off on a little bit of a tangent, but just to explain
this is good. This is good right here. I didn't even know that. You know?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, it's not like it's a one size fits all kind of thing. Like if you wear one hat, you can't wear other hats. Absolutely.
Yes.
So it's almost like if you're dealing with an individual or assisting an individual that has a developmental disability, that's your Asperger's, your autism, they can also be mentally disabled. So that's what we call dual diagnosis.
Okay.
You have diagnosis happening at the same time.
Okay.
One affects the other, but they both have a slot. They both have, one may manifest more than the other. So you can have someone that, say, has CP or cerebral palsy or has autism, and then they also have bipolar disorder. So you have these different things kind of working within an individual and trying to kind of suss out what needs the primary assistance, what takes a back seat, and kind of handle that, whether you're taking the therapeutic route, whether you're doing medication-based intervention. Pervasive can just definitely be one of many that some of your folks may be going through.
I know that there have been children that have come in the daycare, and my staff and myself, I'm like, I just can't put my finger on it. Well, this explains why I just couldn't put my finger on it.
More than one.
And so at that point, I'm just like, well, I don't know what to tell the parent. I see something, but parents want concrete things there, you know? So there was a child that just kind of went through the cracks there and in my care, because I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what to tell the parent. I just knew that there was something different there.
That's it. Exactly what you just said. That's all it takes. There's something going on.
Okay.
Whether you say, I've been doing this for 20 plus years, and there's behaviors, there's typical ways that a child goes through certain concepts, sharing or, socialization.
Yes.
And it seems like your little one may need a different type of support, and I don't know what that is.
Right.
That's okay. If I was a parent, I'd rather you tell me that.
Okay.
You don't have to have the final answer. You just have to open that door and shine that light and just say, you may want to just try, and if it's something that we can do here at the daycare to help that continuity of care, you let me know.
Yes.
And if there's certain things we need to bring in, we can do that. But you may want to just look into that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Wow. This is some really good stuff right here. I'm telling you. I mean, 29 years of doing this, and you just see so much. And then you see, you have, the child who, now I'm noticing are sensory based. Yeah. It's all about sensory. So I have a lot of sensory things going on now. And it's a calmer day. It really, really is a calmer day.
Absolutely. I want to ask you a question, Miss Tanya. Do you have a child that if they don't see one thing, whether it's a ball or a toy or a stuffed animal, they are just off the wall? I mean, they have that one thing, and you have to have it in, whether they're napping. If it's not in eye shot and they can't
Yes, I do.
They can't see it.
I have a little one now. He likes sticks.
Yeah.
He has to have 2 sticks.
Yeah.
And so thank God for the trees in the backyard, because he can always find, sticks. He has to have something like that in his hands at all times.
Yeah.
Especially when we're outside.
Yeah. And we see that a lot, clinicians, when it comes to someone that may be on the spectrum, and it may be as simple as just a self-soothing technique. I had someone, and straws were their thing, and they had to have a straw, not necessarily in their mouth. They weren't necessarily using it to drink anything, but just it was playing with it, or sometimes it was just, all right, I need you to sit with me for 30 seconds. That's the goal. That's what we're working on. At the end of 30 seconds, you get a straw. So it was something about it that just made him able to follow through with things. It was something that when I was teaching, what is that concept? Teaching not immediate gratification, but teaching them how to wait, essentially. That was something that he wanted. And part of the goal was to changing that, whatever was so special to this little guy with straws. My goal as his behavioral therapist was to change it to something that was more socially acceptable. So mom didn't have to always carry straws, because you do that. You take your child into the community.
Yes.
And you have your straw. And folks just may not quite get it. So part of his behavior, his intervention plan was to take that straw and make it into something else that was deemed socially appropriate. And this was a goal mom wanted to have on the IPB. Make it something more socially appropriate, like a stuffed animal. So she didn't have to have that conversation with family members or other people that just may not get it. So, I mean, you have those type of things that you have to deal with. Of course, that comes after a parent just realizing that something's going on.
Absolutely. I use bubbles every day. We have a bubble machine. Bubbles are good.
Bubbles are good. Good.
They love bubbles
too.
Absolutely. They love the water play. They love the sand, the kinetic sand. Like, these are things that I used every day. And it doesn't matter if you're on the spectrum or not. The children it's just a calming and relaxing, and children need to have that calm down relaxation time. They need to learn how to calm themselves, calm their brains. They need, everything can't always be go.
Right. No, I agree.
Because life is not like that.
Exactly. And they're learning those skills now in obviously a controlled environment.
Absolutely.
And I think that the things that are really important, even if it's not, like you're saying, not even you're doing it to teach an individual on the spectrum, just children in general. These skills are transferable. Learning to wait, learning to share is just saying that this individual may need a little bit more time to obtain these concepts. And that's why daycare, I mean, they're so important, because it's you have the time to to maybe have that specific care before they go into school age, to where they're in a room with 30 other kids. It's harder for
because you get lost in the shuffle,
and that's
it's totally different now. Children are so into their tablets. They're not socialized. Or they're on their phone, or they're watching YouTube. So, this is the culture that we have.
Definitely.
Teaching children to play. To use their own mind, their own imagination. Those days are over. It's like, no, we have. So I love the program that I have, because we're able to go outside every day.
Absolutely.
I have people hit me up on Instagram. Do your children go outside every day? Absolutely. Do I still have all my hair? Absolutely. We go outside every day. So what are some of the resources that the Regional Center has for parents?
Well, we have an entire division devoted to what's called early start intake. So 0 to 3 is the age threshold. So all a parent has to know is where is their regional center. Now, there's 21 regional centers in California, so you're going to find, and it's all divided by catchment area. So right now we're in Hawthorne, California. Your regional center would be Harbor Regional Center, which is by Del Amo Mall. It's on the left side, next to the Elephant Bar. So all you have to do is if even if you're not giving them the answers, just say you may want to come based on where you live. You may just want to contact your regional center, and it's as simple as picking up the phone and just saying, "Hey, I have my child is having some difficulties in whatever area." They're going to shoot you over to clinical. That's going to set up an appointment where you're just going to go through a series of just meet and greets and just talking, and it's not going to be anything super invasive. They can come out to the home and they can just observe. You have information, doctor's information, you can shoot it over, and it's just then you start an intake process, and that psychological evaluation will be done whether they have it or not. Because if that's the test that needs to be done to state if they have something or not, and if they don't, then there's other things that they can do. They just maybe need some extra support, maybe at school, but they're not they're not formally diagnosed.
I got you. Right. Yeah. So is this income based at all, or can anyone call?
Anyone. I mean, it really doesn't have to do with income. Now, income may come into play when you're getting certain services and supports to where, say, there's like respite care. Now, if your audience isn't aware of respite, it's really like a glorified babysitter. I mean, if you have someone that's on the spectrum, life goes on. Mom got to go to the grocery store. You got to wash the car. And I may not necessarily want to put you in the back seat, you know. So respite is a type of service to where an individual, not a clinician, of course, but someone that has some education about the condition comes out to your home and is just there with your child, whether it's nap time, it's bath time, it's waking up in the morning, and just to be that extra hand of support. Wonderful. I mean, there's a bunch of different resources. So the amount of hours you get may be somewhat connected to your income, only because if you're not having any other support, which means you can't afford to pay someone to come in, the state is more apt to give you more hours, so then you can have that support. But other than that, getting services, it doesn't have to do with income.
So just call your local regional center.
That's it. And let us take you the rest of the way. That's it. And if anything, you're more in power if you have the knowledge.
Absolutely.
It's better to have knowledge than not. People say they don't want to go to the doctor because they don't want to be told, well, if you have the information, you can make educated guesses.
Absolutely.
And not being without information doesn't help anyone. So well, that definitely is some good information to know that it's not income based. It's not. That it is definitely just make that phone call and just make it happen. It's for your child. Absolutely.
I try to tell parents and people that I meet that may have a child that's on the spectrum, you want to give your child the best life that they can have. You want them to be the best them.
Absolutely.
So there's nothing wrong with the fact that they're on the spectrum. This is how they are. Hey, come on, let's keep it moving.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You know, don't sit and wallow and cry. No, we're going to make the best of this.
And you know what? There's so much support and resources out there. And I think parents aren't quite aware of how much support. If they just ask, I mean, if they just ask, I mean, we just got a annual budget. We redo our budget. Every regional center redoes our budget. We do our budget annually because it's a all regional centers are nonprofit. And out of the 21 regional centers, we got a $6.7 billion budget.
Are you serious?
Our personal regional center, we have at 257 or 259 million dollars just for the 12 months. And that is to be spread over all of our stakeholders, which are our clients, our providers, and just our other programs that we have. So when I say the money's there, the information is there, but sometimes it just takes a daycare provider,
somebody to say
or
something.
A family member, or just a concerned neighbor to say. But it's there.
Wow.
It's definitely
so there's really no excuse. So as a provider, if I have a child that may be on the spectrum, am I able to call to help to get help from the regional center as well?
Absolutely. Yeah. If your child has already been diagnosed, then there's a bunch, but depending on the individual's age, there's different types of services that they can receive. So school age, that's going to be anywhere from 3 to 22. Then we have early intervention, which is our birth to 3. And then anyone over the age of, school age would be anywhere between 3 to 18.
Okay.
Once they're 18 to 59, that's adults.
Okay.
And then 59 to death, that's elderly. So depending on what age group they're in, or what group they're in, there's different types of support that they could get. So it's really just, if they're diagnosed, that's already half the thing. You don't have to go through intake. They can go right into starting to receive the services that they deserve.
Wow. That's good to know, because I didn't know that as a provider, that if we have a child that's diagnosed, that we can call them.
Absolutely. You can, if they're alive, they can get support. It doesn't matter if you're 18 and you may not have necessarily been tested as of yet, and you may have been able to get through primary school and high school and maybe even, junior college, and there's actual support for you. Not at all.
It's never
not at
too
all.
late.
No. But we want to also encourage your audience to seek that early intervention, because you're going to get a big difference.
Yes,
in
absolutely.
What you see. So,
well, this has been a pleasure. This has been just full of good stuff.
Wonderful.
For providers.
I'm glad. Yeah.
And I am so happy to have you on.
Absolutely.
At this point in the podcast, I like to do a healthy snack tip.
Okay, awesome.
So this week's healthy snack tip is going to be a mango bowl. So you'll just take a mango, mash it up. It can be frozen and thawed out, and you just mash it up. And then you'll add 2/3 cup of plain yogurt to it, mix it all together, put it in a bowl. And then you'll take a little skewer and you'll put like fruit slices on there. Orange or apple or pineapple or kiwi. And then you can also, depending on the age of the child, you can top it with granola or either some little Cheerios or maybe some little blueberries. But that's our little healthy snack tip.
Oh, wonderful. I'm going to try that.
Yeah, it sounds good. That's what I said too. I saw that and I was like, I'm going to make that this week. Also, for providers who are afraid of losing the income of a child that may be on the spectrum, I say to those providers that we're held accountable, and we have to do what we need to do. A lot of parents or providers be like, well, I don't want my child to leave you, but knowing that the provider can get help for this child, then that that information was just so pertinent to me. Like, I really, really, really love that aspect of it, because we have children like that we love and adore, but it's just like, I just can't meet your needs. But if I can get some assistance and you can teach me, then then they can stay here, a little while longer.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Everyone doesn't want their child in a center, especially when they're small.
Yeah.
Everyone doesn't want that.
No, you're right.
So you all know that I do the Chronicles on Instagram. So this week I talked about go get the dang ID. So I just want to go a little deeper into that. I had a parent who had someone else come pick the child up. Okay. And the person didn't have the ID. I always tell my parents, when you know that you're going to send someone new, have them bring the ID to the door. This person was just so upset that they had to go back to the car to get the ID. If I had known I needed my... It's just the policy. Right. Go to the car and get your dang
ID. And keep
ID.
everyone safe in the home. Like, why would you...
Oh, my goodness.
be so against that.
I'll never forget, my husband was here. He's a teacher. He was out, I guess, from school. And I was out doing a pickup. Right. And someone came to pick up a child. She was on the list, but I had never seen her, and she didn't have her ID. So my husband calls me, and he's like, I was like, well, I don't know who that is. He's like, well, she's here to pick up this child. And he's like, well, I'm just going to have her sit here. So my husband had the young lady sit there until I got back, and I was like, okay, I remember her now. So then I let her take the child. Gotcha, but it was just like, you are not leaving up out of here with this child. We do not play that.
Absolutely,
but the fact that this other person was so upset. Right, I mean, I just couldn't believe it. Like, are you serious? Yeah. And the child is looking. I'm like, do you know this person? The child's looking like, who are you? Okay. Because children would do that.
Oh, yes, definitely.
If you send someone different to pick them up, even though they may know them, they look like, this is Miss Tanya. Why are you here? You know, so I'm like, I don't know.
Right.
Who you are. This child is acting like they don't know you.
Right.
You're
and
not.
You'd be responsible. I mean,
absolutely.
You know, there's and that's the thing. You think that the basic idea of you have these protocols and policies are in place not for my health,
right,
not because I want to type up all this documentation.
Absolutely,
it's to keep everyone here at my home safe, and safe from harm, because that parent will be the first one cut up if, say, you bent that rule and just let them, and it's just someone walking, you know, down the street.
Absolutely.
They'd want to sue you. I mean, it's not just to protect them, but it's to protect you also as a business owner.
It's the law. Licensing requires it. I mean, me personally, I wouldn't allow a child to go with someone that I didn't know.
Exactly.
Even though I've had parents call and be like, well, this is what they look like. I don't care what you say they look like. I need that ID.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
No,
that's what has to happen. Mm-hmm. Another chronicle that I talked about this week was, it's not all about you. And it's about parents who don't make the time for their children on the weekends. Where you have a child that is just running errands with you, doing the things that you want to do, and they're just bored to death.
Just yearning for that.
Exactly. So I encourage the parents, take them to the park. You would be amazed at how many children don't go to the park. How many children don't know how to cross the street.
Right.
I mean, it's just crazy.
Time is so different.
How many children walk with their head down and not up looking around at their surroundings because they're so used to having their tablet or their iPad, you know, in their hands.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I had to tell this parent, I'm like, you have to do more with this child. You just named all the things that you like to do, and then y'all just sat in the house. He used to being outside all day.
Right.
He used to running and playing. So we have to. When you decide to have a child, there's a sacrifice, and I don't even like the word sacrifice. There's just certain things that parents have to do now.
Absolutely.
You have to stimulate this child mentally and physically. You have to educate them. You have to show them how to have a good time.
Right.
You have to show them different things. They don't know how to act in a restaurant if they've never been to one.
Right. Yeah, they don't have that etiquette.
So stop not taking your children to places because you don't want to go with your child. No. You teach them. My grandson can order anything off of any menu anywhere. He knows how to sit there. He knows how to order his food. Absolutely.
Right.
And he's 4.
Yeah.
So I just want to thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely.
I have enjoyed you. We have so much good stuff.
Yeah, good content.
I know my listeners have definitely enjoyed this. They will enjoy this as well because this is just very, very informative. And for the providers, don't be afraid to call the regional center. Once you have a child that has been diagnosed, you, the provider, can call to get assistance for your facility.
Absolutely.
For the child. So with all that being said, if you don't want to be a Chronicle, don't do it.